So for this video, me and Stacy, the co-creator of the Battle of the Bands readathon, are going to quickly go over our TBRs for the month of April during the readathon, and we're also going to give you several recommendations for all of the prompts.
Might be more like an MBR.
Yeah.
Go team AC/DC.
Led Zeppelin!
No,
Led Zeppelin! So for the Beatles prompts, number 1 is Hey Jude, read a book with a male character name in the title of the book or the series. And for me, what am I doing? Or what are you doing?
I don't know what you're doing, but I'm planning on maybe reading a John Cleaver book. I think I'm up to number 4 in the series. I forget what it's called. Do you remember?
It's The Devil's Only Friend.
Yeah. But the series is obviously John Cleaver, which is the main character.
I'm very excited for you to get that.
Yes, I am too. I've really enjoyed the first 3.
Yeah. And what I'm reading is The Legend of Blackjack by A.R. Witham. I've been meaning to read this for a while, and it's a pretty good excuse to actually read it.
Yes, I've heard really good things about it as well.
Yeah, everyone's raved about it. And some recommendations. So some obvious ones are like Harry Potter and Harry Dresden and what she's holding up. Ender's Game can all work. And of course, there's Percy Jackson. There's Prince Caspian from the Narnia series. There's Hercule Poirot by Agatha Christie. And then I'll throw in some Stephen King. Gerald's Game, The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, and Billy Summers.
Yeah, lots of options for that one. Prompt number 2 is Come Together, and it's to read a book with a group of friends working together.
And what I'm doing is Stones of Light by Zach Argyle, which is book 2 in the Threadlight series. And Sharon Dwyer recommended that I do it for this prompt, so I am doing that.
And I've heard that Gallant by V.E. Schwab has a group of friends working together, which I didn't know from the synopsis, so I'm planning on maybe getting to that finally.
Yes. And some other options would be Nettle and Bone, probably all of the books in the Rhaenyra series, Kings of the Wild, The Crew, and The Body by Stephen King, and Six of Crows.
Definitely.
And prompt number 3 is Yesterday, read a book with a character's written account of their own story. And for this one, I will be reading, actually, Trevor Noah's memoir. I'm having a hard time remembering what it's called.
Born a Crime.
Born a Crime. And just in general, memoirs can especially count for this prompt.
I'm planning on reading Tales of the Sun Eater Volume 1 by Christopher Rocchio. So basically this whole series, I think, other than the first novella, which is from someone else's point of view, is the main character narrating their own story.
Yes.
Yeah.
And some other classic examples would be, of course, Name of the Wind, or Fitz, from Realm of the Elderlings. Fred the Vampire Accountant can definitely work for this. Shawshank Redemption by Stephen King. And Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. Those can all work.
So prompt number 4 is for the song Help. And for this, you have to do a poll pick. So if you have a platform, you're welcome to do a poll on whatever platform you have followers on. And if you don't, there's a channel in the Discord under the readathon heading where you can post your own poll. And I've posted a poll there. And the winner of mine looks to be Guild by Raven Kennedy, which is the first book in the Plated Prisoner series.
And for my poll, the winner was After the People Lights Go Off by Stephen Graham Jones, which I've been looking forward to reading for a while. And the last prompt for the Beatles, number 5, is Magical Mystery Tour. Read a fantasy book with a mystery element. And for this one, I will be reading the 3rd book in the Threadlight series, Bonds of Chaos by Zach Argyle.
And I'm planning on reading the 5th book in the Song of the Shattered Sands, which is When Jackals Storm the Walls. And for this series, there are a lot of mysteries woven in on how to go after the kings. There's like a little clue for every one. So
yeah, pretty much any of the books in that series would work, I think.
Yeah.
And some other examples would be, of course, Harry Dresden would make the most sense. Bone Shard Daughter, Broken Empire, The Last Smile in Sunder City, and Rhapsodic.
Yep, definitely.
Oh, you're dropping books, babe.
I'm throwing books. So now we're into the Led Zeppelin prompts. And the first one for them, number 6, is Stairway to Heaven. And that's to read a book with stairs on the cover or in the title. What are you reading for this one, sweetie?
I am reading Absent in the Spring by Agatha Christie because it has stairs on the cover. And I think there's a lot of Agatha Christie books that probably have stairs on the cover, so.
Yeah, there's a few.
Yeah.
For this, if any edition of a book has it on there, you can count it even if you're not reading that specific edition.
Like if you're doing an audio and the audio cover doesn't have it, but you know a certain edition does have stairs on the cover, you can count it.
Absolutely. So I'm planning on doing The Slower Guard of Silent Things by Patrick Rothfuss, the novella in the Kingkiller series.
And something with stairs in the title is City of Stairs by Robert Jackson Bennett. You can, of course, count that. Also, Lion, Witch in the Wardrobe.
So I don't know if you can see, but there's some stairs around there.
Okay.
They're there if you look close.
Also, you can probably go with a lot of thriller options. So something like Paranoid by Lisa Jackson clearly has stairs on the cover. And something by Stephen King would be Gwendy's Button Box. That has stairs on the cover. And another thriller would be Keep It in the Family by John Mars. And prompt number 7 for Led Zeppelin is Immigrant Song. Read a book by an author who has either immigrated to another country or whose parents have immigrated to another country. And what I'm going to probably do is read Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark.
I'm planning on getting to Bone Shard War, which is the 3rd book in the Drowning series. It actually releases, I think, on the 18th this month. So I'm excited to conclude the trilogy.
And some other examples of authors who have either immigrated or their parents have would be R.F. Kuang, who has written Babel or Babel, however you want to pronounce it. And also Fonda Lee, who wrote the Greenbone Saga.
She has a novella coming out this month, too.
Well, there you go. Also, K.S. Veloso, who wrote, what's it called?
The Wolf of Orenyaro?
Yes. And also Trevor Noah, which I mentioned previously. He was originally from South Africa.
So prompt 8 is based on Dazed and Confused, and for this you have to read a book containing the amnesia trope.
And we're going to be buddy reading Central Park by an author that I can't remember.
Guillaume Musso, I think.
It's French.
Yes.
So that has the amnesia trope, and that'll be a lot of fun. I'll be reading that to Stacy because I have a copy and you do not.
Yeah.
And some other examples would be Bone Shard Daughter, Project Hail Mary, which is an awesome book. And another fun one would be Lord of the Rings, which you might be wondering, who has amnesia in that? But it's actually Gollum, because he kind of has a hard time remembering who he was in the past.
Yep. So another example could be Blackstone Heart by Michael R. Fletcher.
And for prompt number 9 for Led Zeppelin is Over the Hills and Far Away, which is to read a book with an older protagonist. And it's up to your interpretation of how old you think an older protagonist is. But for what I'm reading is, if I can find it, A History of What Comes Next by Sylvain Neville, which definitely has an older protagonist.
And I'm planning on reading Promise of Blood by Brian McClellan. And I don't know exactly how old he is from the synopsis, but I know he has a grown son, I think. So
He's got to be older to have a grown son.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and so some recommendations would be Kings of the Wild, Hercule Poirot, of course, A Man Called Ova.
Yeah.
And then a thriller would be Killers of a Certain Age, which is about like retired lady assassins. So that could work. And we also have The Secret Diary of Hendrik Groen.
Yes, I think. I don't know.
Okay, well, he's definitely an older protagonist.
Yeah, he's 83 and a quarter years old. Didn't you know? So prompt 10 is Trampled Underfoot, and it's to read a lesser-known book by a popular author. And for this, I think I'm going to read The Prospect by Alyssa K. Adams. She's very well known for her Bromance Book Club series, but if you look on Goodreads, there's almost like no ratings in comparison for this short novella she's written.
And what I'm going to read is the 3rd book in Sylvain Neville's new trilogy, and the 3rd book I think is called For the First Time Again. And this new trilogy, it's great, but it has severely less ratings than the Themis Files, which I think it has like 80,000 ratings. So it's definitely lesser known. And some examples would, of course, be Germ, George R. Martin, pretty much anything besides The Song of Ice and Fire, The Colorado Kid by Stephen King, that's fairly not known by him. And there's also Jim Butcher, anything besides not Jim Dresden, Harry Dresden. Yeah, anything besides the Dresden Files would work for that. And Crichton, his most famous ones would be like Jurassic Park, but underrated one would be something like Prey. And then another example would be Jen Williams, who is well known for the Ninth Reign series, but she also has a psychological thriller called A Dark and Secret Place. And moving on to Team Queen's prompts, for number 11, we have We Will Rock You, We Are the Champions. And the prompt is to read a book with an already accomplished or successful character. And the one that I will be reading is... Oh crap, what am I reading for that?
I don't know. I think you were planning to read the same thing I was, which is A Desert Torn Asunder, the last book in the Shattered Sand series. And then you binge read it after you finished book 5.
I did, so now I have to pick a new book, and I don't know what to pick.
Yes. Well, most sequels, especially in fantasy series where the protagonist has the use of magic of some kind, like they learn a lot and grow.
Yeah, and some other examples would be Crichton, because a lot of his characters are scientists and doctors who are already well established, who are put into precarious situations.
Or even the top of their field a lot of the times, too.
And one of my all-time favorite authors, Taylor Jenkins Reid, a lot of her characters often are already established, like Evelyn Hugo, like well established and successful actor, looking back on their lives. Daisy Jones, kind of the same thing.
Carrie Soto.
Yes. And a horror would be Wonderland, because the main character, while she is pretty much retired, she was a very successful ballerina, and she is quitting her job to let her husband kind of achieve his dreams. So she was already successful. And one of our favorite thrillers of all time, House Across the Lake, already has a successful character at the beginning.
So the next prompt is Bohemian Rhapsody, and it's to read a book with a character who refuses to conform to their society. And for this, I'm actually not going to tell you what I have planned because it's a bit of a spoiler for this character. It's like, I think, book 4 or 5 in a series, somewhere in there.
And what I'm going to do is read Are You Experienced by Jordan Sonnenblick, the same author who wrote Drums, Girls, and Dangerous Pie. This one's all about like a kid who goes to a bunch of different protests, and he gets transported back into the 60s, and he's a big Jimi Hendrix fan, but the fact that he's protesting, he's doesn't want to conform.
Yeah.
And some examples would be basically any books with rebellions of any kind, which is prevalent in a lot of fantasies nowadays, and pretty much any dystopians. And I know one of your favorites is Red Rising.
Definitely.
And there's also The Hunger Games, of course. And then a more classic would be 1984. And another one of my new favorite books is a horror book called Tender is the Flesh, which that would count. And then you also said a book called Dumpling would work.
Yes, I don't know if it's contemporary or historical, but it's about a girl who self-proclaims herself fat, and she is entering a beauty pageant. So you can imagine how that would go.
And prompt number 13 is another one, Bites the Dust. And the prompt for this is to read a book with a serial killer or multiple deaths. And the one that I will be reading... The phone turned off again, babe.
Oh dear. What will you be reading?
I will be reading The Dangers of Smoking in Bed by Mariana Enriquez. And this is a horror short story collection, so I can only assume that there are multiple deaths.
Yeah, we'll hope so.
Yeah, that's going to suck if there's not.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll fit it somewhere else anyway if there aren't.
And what's your book?
So I'm planning on reading Escape by Ian Robb Wright. And I know this is like a horror set in an escape room with a bunch of colleagues.
There's got to be deaths in
Yeah,
there.
I actually have talked to someone who's read it, and they've confirmed that there are multiple deaths, which I figured because otherwise it might be marketed as thriller instead of horror, right?
Yes. And some other examples would be most horror books have deaths, so that would work. So The Outsider by Stephen King, that definitely works. I've read it.
Yeah.
And then a lot of military fantasy, so something like Gardens of the Moon or The Darkness That Comes Before, all have multiple deaths. And then something like Jack the Ripper would also
Stalking Jack the Ripper.
Stalking Jack the Ripper.
Yes. She's stalking the actual serial killer.
Is that a romance?
I think it's a young adult romance, yeah.
Oh, good Lord.
So prompt number 14 is Under Pressure, and this is to read a book that your friends or subscribers, if you're a creator, have been pressuring you to read. And for this, I'm planning on reading The Great Hunt, which is the second book in the Wheel of Time series. I have been majorly slacking on reading it, so it's time.
Yeah, and for me, I'm actually going to go with the winner for my Patreon wheel spin. And if you don't know, my Patreon members get to vote on a book for me to read every month. And there's a monthly winner. And the winner for this month was An Alchemy of, oh God, it's called
An Alchemy of Masks and Mirrors.
That's what it is. And Josephina was the winner, and she's been wanting me to read this because she loves that series. So I will definitely be checking that out during the readathon. And the last prompt for Team Queen is number 15, Crazy Little Thing Called Love. Read a book by an author that you love. And an author that I love is, again, Sylvain Neville. I'm basically just reading his new trilogy, and it'll be the second book, Until the Last of Me, which will be a reread.
And my plan is to hopefully get to book 4 in the Green Rider series, Black Veil. I've really been loving the series. Well, not so much book 1, but after that, I've been loving everything.
Yeah, you really liked book 2 and 3.
Yes, I did. And if I don't have time, because this is a bit chunky, and I have lots of long books on my TBR, I may swap it for something shorter. But I'm really hoping to get to this one.
And we don't have examples for this one because it's self-explanatory.
Yes.
Read a book by an author that you love.
So the first prompt for the best team, AC/DC, is Highway to Hell, and that's to read a book from a villain's point of view. And for this, I am thinking about picking out Desperate Measures by Katie Robert. It'd be a nice short fantasy romance.
And for me, I'm going to be reading Caroline Kepnes's new Joel Goldberg book, which is called For You and Only You. I love that series, and it's going to be a new release in April. And some examples of more books like this would be Broken Empire by Mark Lawrence, Least of My Scars by Stephen Graham Jones, The Dead Zone by Stephen King, your favorite, right?
No.
And there's also Vicious by V.E. Schwab. And then you were saying that some good options would also be fairy tale retellings.
Yeah, there's a lot of fairy tale retellings told from the point of view of the villain. So things like Malice, not the Malice by John Gwynne, the other Malice, I think is told from Maleficent's point of view. You've got Heartless by Marissa Meyer, which I think is the Queen of Hearts point of view. I mean, I've got one on my shelf that's called The Beast's Heart. It's Beauty and the Beast from the point of view of the Beast. There's lots of stuff out there like that if you're looking.
And prompt number 17 for AC/DC is Back in Black. Read a sequel or a reprinted edition with a mostly black cover. And for me, I'm actually going to be reading a book that I found at Barely Used Books right here in Canada. And that will be Child of God by Cormac McCarthy. This is like a very old book, like one of his first ones, and it's got a mostly black cover, so it works for a reprinted edition.
Yeah, that's a reprint. I was just going to specify. And I'm going to be getting to Morning Star by Pierce Brown. It's a reread for me, and I'm very excited. I've been reading one book a month leading up to the release of Lightbringer, and it can't get here fast enough.
And some more examples of this would be the new reprints of Night Angel,
yes,
which I know you like.
They're beautiful.
And then you have a few books here.
Oh, I have lots.
You have Glint.
Yes. So second book in a fantasy romance series. I held up the first one earlier called Guild.
And then you also have Atlas 6.
Yes, so this is actually the original cover, but it was originally indie and then got picked up by a publisher, and the traditionally published version also has a mostly black cover, so it would count as a reprinted edition.
And then you also have Bargainer.
Yes, the Bargainer series, all the sequels, so this is book 2, but the novella and book 3 are also mostly black covers. So prompt 18 is Thunderstruck, and it's to read a book featuring an unlucky character. And I'm going to be reading Well of Ascension, book 2 in the First Era of Mistborn. I've been slacking on this one too, so now's the time.
I would say that counts for the prompt.
Yes.
And I'm going to be reading Expert Systems Brother by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I read a little bit of the summary for it, and I can't remember what it is at the top of my head, but it made me put it into the category, so he's got to be unlucky somehow. And some examples of this would be Fitz from Realm of the Elderlings. He has a tough life. And most protagonists in like either horror books or dystopian books like Golden Sun, which is one of your favorites. And something like The Martian, where the guy gets stuck on Mars for like 4 years. That's pretty unlucky. And a series of unfortunate events, like it's in the title, series of unfortunate events. And then I've never read this book, but you said Holes would count.
Yes, it would. If you're looking for a middle grade, they're pretty unlucky.
And prompt number 19 for AC/DC is TNT, read a book with a character with magical fire abilities. And the one that I will be reading is actually not a fantasy book. It's actually called Things We Lost in the Fire by Mariana Enrique, another horror short story collection that supposedly has a character with magical fire abilities.
I'm planning on getting to Before They're Hanged by Joe Abercrombie, the second book in the first Law trilogy, and Baez definitely qualifies this book. Also Logan, because we find out in chapter 1 of book 1 that he can communicate with a fire spirit. So
interesting. And some examples would be something like Cradle, the Cradle series by Will White.
Yeah.
Bill White. And then Dresden, of course, would be a classic example. Codex Alera has like elemental magic. Queen of Blood, you were saying, has fire spirits?
Yes, so the protagonists are learning how to manipulate all these elemental spirits, and they can certainly include fire spirits in that, so I think that can work too.
And then I think The Written by Ben Galley literally has a guy with like fire coming out of his hands.
Yeah,
so
on the cover.
We can only assume.
Another example that we didn't write down, but that I just thought of, would be the second book in the V. Schwab series, her fantasy trilogy. What's it called?
What is
Darker
it?
Shade of Magic. The second book in that series has like a tournament of people using elemental magic. And there's certainly some fire going on there.
There you go.
And the last prompt 20, is Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, and it's to read a book including bribery or blackmail. And for this, I'm going to be reading our Thrill, Kill, or Chill book for the month of April, and that's The Kill Club.
Yep, and I will be reading that as well.
Oh, there you go.
And I think one of our buddies read it and said that, or confirmed that it was bribery or bribery.
Bribery or blackmail. Yes. Okay. I mean, I was pretty sure from the synopsis, but I wanted to double check.
Yeah, and we wrote down a bunch of books that would probably count. Agatha Christie, there's bribery, blackmail over most of those books. Priest of Bones, I think Nico mentioned that in his video, so if you want to read that, go check that out. The Chain, we've both read The Chain, and that's definitely blackmail. The Perfect Family, we read that for the Thrill, Chill, or Kill Club, which that would definitely count.
So if you're a little behind, here's your chance to catch up.
And also Joe Goldberg, which I mentioned previously, that has a little bit of bribery in it as well.
Is that just book 3?
I think
book 2 and 3, maybe?
Book 2 and 3, a little bit. And then also The Couple Next Door has a bit of blackmail in it. Yes. And bribery.
Yes.
All right, so those are all of the books on me and Stacy's TBR for the Battle of the Bands readathon, and a whole bunch of recommendations for all of the prompts in the readathon. So hopefully you guys can now figure out your TBR, and hopefully you guys have checked out the Discord and signed up for the readathon. If not, I'll have the link down below for all of that. Me and Stacy worked very hard on it, and it's fun to see people's reactions to everything.
Yeah. Announcement day is always the best part.
Yeah.
So we hope you come join us and have lots of fun in April and get a lot read.
Team Led Zeppelin for the win!
No, AC/DC.
Led Zeppelin!
No!
Comment down below what team you're going to join. Are you going to join me for Team Led Zeppelin?
Me for AC/DC.
Or Team Queen for Ian the Reader, or Team The Beatles for Kate. I remembered. And then also, you're not even the team captain for AC/DC.
No, Nico is the team captain.
That's Nico. Anyway, comment down below what team you're going to join, and also what book you're the most excited to read in April. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and consider subscribing to the YouTube channel and the Bookish Drummer Discord. That's what it is. That's how you get to the readathon. Also, you can check out my Patreon page if you want to support me there. I have my Amazon wishlist if you'd like to buy me some more books. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and have a fantastic day. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so for the prompts, okay, don't look at me like that. Prompt number 1 is Hey Jude, a book with a male character name in the title. I'm going to start that over.
Yeah. Maybe I should be doing the prompts. The first set of prompts are under the Beatles, and the first one is for Hey Jude, and that's to read a male.
No, I'm going to muck them up.
Read a male, yeah.
Take 2.
So the first set of prompts is for the Beatles, and the first one is for Hey Jude, which is to read a book or a series. No. I think, how am I going to say this?
We can't even get past the first. Prompt number 9 for Led Zeppelin is Over the Hills and Far Away, which is read a book with an older protagonist, and you can certainly... and...
Oh, dear.
I'm dying right now. Ozzy.
No, you wait. Go find Mom. Go find Mommy. Okay. Oh, we're already recording.
We've been recording.
Oh, okay.